Remember that trade war everyone thought was just tough talk? The kind of political chest thumping that made headlines but didn't seem to touch everyday life? Yeah, it just got real. And not just real, expensive, complicated, and global. China, in a move that surprised absolutely nobody paying attention, just slapped a whopping 84% tariff on a bunch of US goods. That's right, 84%. That's not a tax. That's a message. You trying to sell American soybeans in Shanghai? Good luck with that. Get ready to pay a premium, buddy. And not just for soybeans. This tariff wave hits everything from agricultural products to industrial components. For American farmers, this is a gut punch. Many of them already operate on razor-thin margins, and now their biggest overseas customer just made their goods nearly unsellable. This whole thing started because our guy in the White House, a man who seems to think trade wars are easy to win, decided to play tariff roulette with the entire world. Spoiler alert, the House always wins. First, it was almost every country. A real love letter to globalization, that was. Tariffs here, sanctions there, and suddenly, allies started looking like adversaries. The administration claimed it was about fairness, about leveling the playing field. But in the process, it lit a fuse under a global supply chain already stretched thin. Then he set his sights on China, jacking up tariffs on their goods to a mind-boggling 125%. That's not a negotiation tactic. That's economic warfare. Unsurprisingly, China, a country that doesn't exactly back down from a challenge, decided to respond in kind. And when China hits back, it doesn't pull punches. And by in kind, we mean with tariffs that could make even the most hardened economist wince. These aren't symbolic gestures, they're strategic strikes. This isn't just about soybeans and steel anymore, folks. It's about semiconductors, rare earth minerals, and the tech that powers your phone, your car, your life. The ripple effects are already being felt in tech manufacturing, where US companies rely heavily on Chinese components. Disruptions here could mean delays, shortages, and higher prices for consumers everywhere. This is about the future of the global economy, and it's about to get messy. So buckle up, Buttercup. We're in for a bumpy ride. And the question now isn't who wins, it's how much everyone loses before this ride is over. Let's rewind the clock a bit. It all began with a president seemingly convinced that trade deals are some kind of zero-sum game, where if one country wins, another automatically loses. His solution? Tariffs. Tariffs everywhere. From steel to solar panels, if it was imported, it was getting hit with a tax. His reasoning? Well, that's where things get murky. He accused China of unfair trade practices, intellectual property theft, the whole 9 yards. Now, were some of his concerns valid? Sure, maybe. But launching a full-blown trade war? That's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You might make a big splash, but you're just going to make things worse. And worse they got. The 125% tariff on Chinese goods was the big one, a move that sent shockwaves through global markets. Economists sounded the alarm, businesses panicked, and consumers braced themselves for higher prices. But did our tariff-happy president listen? Nope. He doubled down, claiming it was all part of his master plan to make America great again. The problem is, trade wars don't have winners, just casualties. Now you might be thinking, 84% tariffs? That sounds like a knockout punch. Surely, that's gotta hurt China more than it hurts us, right? After all, we're the world's largest economy, and we've got leverage. But here's the thing. Trade wars aren't just about who can slap the biggest number on a spreadsheet. They're about pressure points. And China? Well, they've been studying ours for a while now. So hold your horses, buckaroo. China's not just reacting, they're calculating. They've been playing the long game, and they've got a few tricks up their sleeve that go way beyond tit-for-tat tariffs. First off, they're not just matching our tariffs. They're being surgical, strategic. They're choosing their targets with precision, like a chess player thinking 5 moves ahead. Take soybeans, for example. China zeroed in on agricultural products, especially from states that heavily supported Trump. That's not a coincidence. That's pressure politics. They're aiming straight at the heart of the American political base. It's a classic case of don't start a trade war with someone who can retaliate in soybeans. And China? They buy a lot of soybeans, or at least they used to. But China's not stopping there. They're not just playing defense, they're building a whole new offense. Remember that unreliable entities list they cooked up? It's not just a list, it's a warning shot. A signal to foreign companies, play by our rules or you're out. It's starting to look a lot like China's version of economic sanctions. Quiet, bureaucratic but powerful. They're tightening the screws on American firms, making it harder to operate, harder to profit, harder to stay. Some US tech giants have already felt the heat, blacklisted, sidelined, or simply squeezed out of the Chinese market. And once you're out, getting back in, that's a whole different game. Meanwhile, China's not just looking inward. They're looking outward, diversifying their trade partners, building new alliances, and reducing their dependence on the US market. They're cozying up to countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, even Europe. Through initiatives like the Belt and Road, they're laying down infrastructure, forging deals, and creating new trade routes that bypass traditional Western channels. Basically, they're trying to build a world where they don't need us as much. A world where they can sell, buy, and grow without relying on American consumers or American tech. So while those 84% tariffs might sting in the short term, China's playing a different game. One that's less about today's headlines and more about tomorrow's balance of power. They're thinking long-term. They're willing to take some punches now if it means they can come out stronger, more independent, and more influential in the end. And that's more than just tariffs. That's strategy. Think this trade war's just a family feud between the US and China? Think again. What started as a tit-for-tat over tariffs has spiraled into a full-blown global economic brawl, and no one's walking away without a few bruises. The European Union, once a bystander in this economic showdown, is now stepping into the ring. And they're not just throwing jabs, they're landing haymakers. The EU's response wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic, calculated, and designed to hit the US where it hurts most, in the wallet and in the heartland. You see, when global trade slows down, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet that take a hit. It's real people. Dock workers with no ships to unload, truckers with no cargo to haul, small business owners watching their storefronts gather dust. It's a ripple effect that turns into a tidal wave. It all kicked off when the Trump administration imposed tariffs on European steel and aluminum, citing national security concerns. That's right, national security, as if European metal was somehow a Trojan horse. And while the idea of protecting American industry might sound noble, the execution left a lot of folks scratching their heads. I mean, come on. Belgian waffles? Are we really saying breakfast food is a threat to homeland security? Unless, of course, you're talking about the existential crisis of waking up to find your favorite waffle stand closed. That's a tragedy in its own right. The EU wasn't about to take that lying down. They saw the tariffs as an unfair attack on their industries and their workers. So they fired back, with precision. They targeted over $22 billion worth of American exports. And not just any exports. These were carefully chosen to hit politically sensitive regions. Soybeans from the Midwest, motorcycles from Wisconsin, bourbon from Kentucky. Even playing cards made the list. It was economic chess, not checkers. That's right. They came for our Harley-Davidsons and our poker nights. It's like they studied a map of Americana and said, let's go for the soul. The result? A tangled mess of retaliatory tariffs, disrupted supply chains, and rising costs for consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. Farmers, manufacturers, and retailers are all feeling the squeeze, and the longer it drags on, the more damage it does. It's like a bar fight that started with two guys arguing over who had the better fantasy football team and ended up with the whole bar getting trashed. Except in this case, the bar is the global economy, and everyone's picking up the tab.